The irreducible principle of intentionality. Happiness is an action, not an outcome. The first and most critical principle extracted from this body of work, driven by Seligman, Lyubomirsky, Akor, Ben Shahar, and the how-to guides, is the rejection of the hedonic treadmill, the idea that external success or comfort leads to lasting happiness. Instead, well-being is an effortful, intentional practice that consumes time and cognitive resources. A. The 40% intentional activity lever. The set point and the lever, the how of happiness. Research consistently shows that long-term happiness is determined by three factors: a genetic set point, roughly 50%, life circumstances, a surprisingly small 10%, and intentional activity, the remaining controllable 40%. The foundational truth is that individuals have enormous agency in shaping their own happiness trajectory. This 40% is the realm of conscious choice, effort, and engagement with practices prescribed across this corpus. The formula for flourishing. PERMA. Martin Seligman's evolution of happiness theory from authentic happiness to flourish establishes that well-being is a multidimensional construct, not merely the absence of sadness or the presence of pleasure. Flourishing is the result of cultivating 5 measurable elements. Positive emotion, P. Experiencing joy, hope, love, gratitude, engagement, E. Experiencing flow, being fully immersed in activities where time seems to stop. Relationships, R. Having authentic, positive, and deep social connections. Happy together, meaning, M. Serving something larger than the self, often linked to spirituality or purpose. Accomplishment, A. The pursuit of mastery and competence, the gap and the gain. The power of narrative framing, the gap and the gain. A key intentional activity is the conscious reframing of progress. The mind must be trained to focus on the gain, measuring progress against a past self, rather than the gap, measuring progress against an ideal, impossible future or others. This is a direct, daily intentional choice to adjust the perception of reality, directly impacting accomplishment and positive emotion. The irreducible principle of strengths, the architecture of the optimal self. The second principle asserts that the most effective route to resilience and peak performance is not by fixing weaknesses, but by identifying, understanding, and deliberately deploying signature character strengths. A. The VIA classification in character strengths, the anatomy of virtue, character strengths and virtues. All texts that focus on character, Seligman, Peterson, Niemiec, rely on the foundational truth that character is not arbitrary, but a classifiable system of 24 character strengths organized under 6 core virtues: wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. This classification provides a common language and framework for self-knowledge. Strengths as the fuel for flow, character strengths interventions. A signature character strength is something an individual feels authentic and energized using. Deploying these signature strengths is the most reliable way to achieve engagement, flow, and accomplishment, mastery. The conscious practice of character strengths interventions is the actionable step in converting theoretical knowledge of the self into tangible results and deeper satisfaction. The Mastery Hope Circuit, the Hope Circuit Learned Hopefulness. Hope is not mere optimism. It is a cognitive skill built on 2 components: goals, identifying a path, and agency, the belief that one can take action. This is the direct psychological antidote to learned helplessness, Seligman's early work. By linking intentional actions, the 40% lever, to measurable progress, hope is hardwired. When an individual uses their strengths to overcome a challenge, they are building their hope circuit and strengths-based resilience, SBR, proving to the self that future goals are achievable. The irreducible principle of cognitive control. Resilience and optimism are skills. The final principle unites the corpus, asserting that both emotional stability, resilience, and positive perspective, optimism, are trainable cognitive skills rooted in the brain's neuroplasticity and the conscious management of the mind's inner voice. A. Managing the inner voice. And the saboteur sage distinction, positive intelligence, that little voice in your head. All negative emotions and limiting beliefs stem from a core set of saboteurs, e.g., the judge, the controller. Positive intelligence is the active suppression of these saboteurs and the activation of the sage perspective, which is rooted in 5 core positive powers: empathy, explore, innovate, navigate, activate. The foundational truth is that the inner, negative voice is a pattern that can be identified, interrupted, and rerouted. The hardwiring of happiness, hardwiring happiness resilient. The brain is plastic, but it has a negativity bias. It is built to register and focus on threats. The EU, Velcro for negative, Teflon for positive. Hardwiring happiness and related neuroscientific approaches, Hansen, emphasize the need for intentional, sustained practice to build up positive neural structures. This involves consciously savoring positive experiences, savoring for a minimum duration to allow the positive emotions to convert from fleeting states into enduring traits, literally making the self more resilient. Optimism as an explanatory style, learned hopefulness, authentic happiness. Optimism is a skill based on a specific explanatory style for interpreting bad events. The resilient person explains setbacks as temporary, not permanent, specific, not pervasive, and external, not personal. By contrast, the pessimistic style sees setbacks as permanent, pervasive, and personal. This explanatory style is a cognitive choice that can be learned, often via CBT-based tools like the Resilience Workbook for Kids, directly fulfilling the learned hopefulness principle. The power of negative thinking. The antidote, the power of negative thinking. A small but crucial counterpoint acknowledges the utility of negative thinking. Strategic pessimism, Berkman, is the recognition that attempting to suppress negative emotions creates internal conflict. True resilience and the antidote to excessive toxic positivity comes from acknowledging negative events, accepting uncertainty, and using anxiety as a catalyst for preparation. The WHOOP method from Rethinking Positive Thinking. Wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. This is a higher-order form of resilience that uses negative emotion constructively, rather than denying it, the upside of stress. The cohesive narrative. The architected life. The ultimate synthesis of this positive psychology corpus is the blueprint for the architected life, self-acceptance and diagnosis. Acknowledge your genetic set point and accept the 40% of your happiness that is under your intentional control. Architectural plan, strengths. Perform a VIA assessment, character strengths, to find your signature resources, and use them as the primary tool to achieve flow and mastery, PERMA. Construction, intentional practice. Engage in daily intentional activities to build the PERMA elements, specifically by consciously reframing your narrative, gain over gap, and practicing an optimistic explanatory style, temporary, specific, external. Neuro-hardwiring. Intervene directly in your mind's negative bias by identifying and silencing saboteurs, and consciously savoring positive moments to hardwire calm and confidence. The journey from helplessness to flourishing is the deliberate, ongoing work of transforming the self from a passenger of circumstance into the intentional architect of its own cognitive structure and narrative. The applied framework. Positive psychology as a tool for spiritual entrepreneurship. The final synthesis connects the core tenets of positive psychology, intentionality, strengths, cognitive control, directly to the user's stated interests in elemental soul, spiritual, bracelets, and Vile I Vode, healing brand, by framing them as strategies for conscious entrepreneurship and mindful living. The principles extracted from the positive psychology corpus provide the ultimate operating system for building a mission-driven, resilient business. A. Intentionality and the spiritual business mission. The principle that happiness is 40% intentional. Activity directly translates into the necessity of intentional business design. For spiritual ventures like Elemental Soul, the business itself becomes a medium for the entrepreneur's flourishing. PERMA, meaning M as the value proposition, the product, e.g., spiritual bracelets connecting to Croatian folklore, is the physical vessel for the meaning element of PERMA. The entrepreneur must intentionally tie the business mission to a transcendent purpose, connecting wearers to devoevery, dual faith, and ancient stories, Kamena Precha. This is the highest form of meaning in positive leadership, Kim S. Cameron, where the product's value is derived from its ethical and narrative depth. The savoring of moments, the power of moments. Entrepreneurship is a journey filled with stress but also moments of profound impact, Chip and Dan Heath. Intentionality requires the founder to actively savor, Fred Boyd Bryant, the small successes, a customer's testimonial, a successful product launch, or the completion of a challenging design. This practice of savoring converts fleeting positive emotions into hardwired confidence and calm, hardwiring happiness, providing the fuel needed to sustain a small business. The Hope Circuit, in venture building, the emotional journey of a founder, is a direct battle against learned helplessness, Seligman. Building a spiritual brand requires immense hope, Shane J. Lopez. This is achieved by setting clear, achievable goals, product lines, sales targets, and continuously reinforcing agency, the belief that one's strengths can execute the plan. Every small win with elemental soul builds the founder's hope circuit, for Vile I Vode, demonstrating that a future vision is achievable. B. Strengths-based resilience in the market. The core focus on character strengths offers a superior framework for entrepreneurial resilience compared to solely focusing on market competition or financial metrics. Deploying signature strengths, the founder's advantage. The founder should identify their unique character strengths, e.g., creativity, judgment, perseverance, and structure the business around them. If the founder's top strength is creativity, they must allocate time for handcrafting the unique bracelets. If it's perseverance, grit, they will withstand the inevitable dips in the e-commerce cycle. This is the positive psychology coaching approach applied to the business structure. The positive ratio in team building. Barbara Fredrickson's research on the 3-to-1 positivity ratio, the ratio of positive to negative interactions needed to achieve flourishing, is vital for team and customer relations. Conscious entrepreneurship demands cultivating positive, ethical relationships with suppliers, partners, and customers. Give and take, Section 3. This positive climate, driven by authentic character strengths, transforms the business into a positive organization, positive leadership, making it resilient to market volatility. The courage to be happy, the philosophy from the courage to be happy, that happiness is a choice independent of circumstance, is the spiritual entrepreneur's shield. The value of the business is not contingent upon profit alone, but on the courageous deployment of the founder's authentic self, character strengths, in the marketplace. C. Cognitive control and mindful living, the entrepreneur vlogs. The emphasis on mindful notes and entrepreneur vlogs, as per your memory notes, is the perfect vehicle for applying the principles of cognitive control. The vlog becomes a public mechanism for self-regulation and intentional thought. The mindful note as a saboteur. Interrupter. The practice of recording mindful notes is a direct application of the techniques in positive intelligence and that little voice in your head. These notes serve as a System 2 audit of the automatic negative saboteur voices that plague entrepreneurs: fear of failure, imposter syndrome. The simple act of externalizing the thought, writing it down, creates the necessary psychological distance to interrupt the negative neural circuit. Mirror work and self-concept. Louise Hay's concept of mirror work and the underlying principle of hardwiring happiness are tools for self-concept. The entrepreneur, who is constantly visible in vlogs, must cultivate a strong, positive self-concept rooted in freely determined agency. Mirror work is a radical, intentional activity designed to rewire the core self-acceptance, ensuring the founder's message and the spiritual brand's authenticity is transmitted from a place of genuine self-worth, not self-doubt. The upside of stress. The entrepreneurial journey is inherently stressful. Instead of viewing stress as damaging, the founder should adopt the perspective of the upside of stress. Kelly McGonigal. Stress is seen as energy preparing the body for action, a sign that something the founder cares deeply about is on the line. This cognitive reframing transforms the inevitable pressure of running elemental soul into purposeful energy, further building resilience and grit. In conclusion, positive psychology is not just a study of happiness, it is the first principles guide to building a resilient, ethical, and meaningful business. It provides the practical tools for the spiritual entrepreneur to ensure that the journey of building a brand is, simultaneously, the journey of building a flourishing life. The final synthesis, the operational model for flourishing. This final section integrates all 5 previous principles: the duality of mind, Section 1, fragile self, Section 2, meaning narrative, Section 3, intentionality strengths, Section V, and spiritual entrepreneurship, Section 5, into a single operational model for living a life of maximum resilience, purpose, and impact. This model acts as the ultimate long-tail summary, synthesizing all 98 texts into an irreducible, actionable framework. The Integrated Flourishing, PERMA XASA, framework. The path to a well-lived life is the continuous, conscious interaction between the internal self and the external environment, achieved by balancing 2 fundamental forces: the pursuit of flourishing, PERMA, and the application of architectural discipline, ASA. Foundational Principles Description Source. Text examples: positive emotion, the pursuit of the 3-1-1 positivity ratio through the conscious practice of savoring and the strategic reframing of stress, the upside of stress. Positivity, savoring, the happiness advantage engagement, the daily search for flow states most reliably achieved by identifying and deploying signature character strengths in work and life activities. Authentic happiness, character strengths and virtues relationships, the intentional construction of psychological safety, and the commitment to the giver's advantage to build robust, mutual and supportive connections, give and take, supercommunicators, happy together, meaning the voluntary adoption of a purposeful narrative that transcends the self, linking daily effort, like a spiritual business, to a larger ethical or social contribution. Flourish, 12 Rules for Life. The Hope Circuit accomplishment, the cognitive practice of focusing on the gain, progress against the past self, rather than the gap, comparison to others or an impossible ideal. The gap and the gain, grit, atomic habits, export to sheets 2. The architectural discipline ASA, the operating system to achieve the state of PERMA. The individual must employ a 3-part architectural discipline that manages the gap between the automatic, System 1, and deliberate, System 2, mind. A. Awareness, the audit, the foundation of cognitive humility. This is the non-negotiable first step, the rigorous daily System 2 audit of the self and its environment. Acknowledge the elephant. Accept the mind's duality. Blink the happiness hypothesis. Recognize that you are a highly biased emotional being, the elephant, steered by a small rational rider, System 2. Identify saboteurs and biases. Pinpoint the specific saboteur voices, positive intelligence, and cognitive biases, predictably irrational, that hijack your decisions. This is the essence of mindful notes, using externalization to create distance from the immediate, negative inner voice. Diagnose strengths. Rigorously identify your personal character strengths to understand what resources you have available to deploy against life's challenges. B. Structure, the environment. The engineering of success. This is the architectural work of making the right choice the easiest choice and actively promoting anti-fragility. Engineer for habits. Apply the principles of atomic habits and tiny habits to your life and business, like elemental soul. Make desired actions easy, obvious, attractive, and satisfying by redesigning your physical and digital environment to favor them. Embrace productive friction. Deliberately reject the cult of safetyism, the coddling of the American mind. Seek out constructive discomfort and low-stakes failure, e.g. free play, difficult projects, taking the hard path, the comfort crisis. This is the training ground that builds grit and resilience. Whoop the future. Use mental contrasting, wish, outcome, obstacle, plan, to temper relentless optimism with strategic pessimism, rethinking positive thinking. This method uses the positive power of wishing, but forces a confrontation with the reality of obstacles and the planning required to overcome them, maximizing the chance of success. C. Action, the narrative, the deployment of purpose. This is the outward-facing application of the disciplined self, focusing on social contribution and ethical living. Edit the story. Consciously practice narrative reframing to overcome a sense of victimhood or helplessness. Maybe you should talk to someone. The successful individual is the one who actively rewrites their explanatory style for setbacks, temporary, specific, external, and adopts a story of freely determined responsibility. The power of seeing others. Actively practice the art of seeing others deeply. How to know a person. By seeking to understand the complex motivations of colleagues and customers, not just their surface-level demands. This is the core skill of building trust and psychological safety in a team or community. Live the mission. Translate the business's ethical purpose, e.g., Elemental Soul's mission to share spiritual folklore, into concrete daily actions. By aligning character strengths with a transcendent goal, the entrepreneurial endeavor itself becomes the greatest source of flourishing. This unified framework demonstrates that human well-being is not a passive gift, but a constant, integrated process of self-architecture where scientific discipline and ethical purpose converge. Seventh, grand conclusion, the irreducible laws of the architect itself. The entire 98-book conglomerate, spanning behavioral economics, social psychology, and positive psychology, converges on two fundamental, universal laws of human existence and one actionable mandate. Law 1. The duality of the mind, the elephant. The human self is fundamentally, predictably irrational and operates through a dual system. The powerful emotional automatic system 1, the elephant, and the weak, resource-intensive deliberate system 2, the rider. Irreducible truth. The mind is a prediction engine driven by heuristics and emotional shortcuts, not pure logic. Its default state is comfort, which manifests as distraction, bias, and avoidance of necessary friction. Mandate, cognitive humility. Acknowledge this duality and reject the great untruth that your feelings are always facts. The first step to mastery is accurate diagnosis of your own automatic failures and biases. Law 2. The anti-fragile principle, the architect. The self is inherently anti-fragile, requiring non-catastrophic stress, responsibility, and intentional, designed to grow into resilience. Irreducible truth. Resilience is a skill, not a trait. It is built by the voluntary adoption of friction, emotional, intellectual, and physical, and the rejection of safetyism. The environment must be engineered to make desired actions easy and undesirable actions difficult. Mandate systemic architecture. Do not rely on willpower. Focus on designing an environment and deploying character strengths to automate virtuous behavior and build hope, goals plus agency. The mandate, the coherent narrative, the purpose. The ultimate function of the deliberate mind is to construct a purposeful narrative that transcends the self. Irreducible truth. Flourishing, PERMA, is not achieved by removing negativity, but by actively creating meaning, engagement, and positive relationships through pro-social effort. This requires the constant practice of narrative reframing, gain over gap, and a commitment to the ethical giver's advantage in the social world. Mandate, intentionality, and responsibility. A well-lived life is the continuous conscious work of editing your story and aligning your systems with a mission, like spiritual entrepreneurship, that provides both personal accomplishment and social meaning. The synthesis concludes that the Path to success and deep fulfillment is not about becoming a superhuman, but about becoming a conscious architect of your own predictable irrationality, leveraging its mechanisms to build a resilient life of purpose and positive impact.